Hello, my name is Celina. I am a part of the Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar team at the Foundation for Inner Peace. The mission of the Foundation is to publish, distribute, and discuss A Course in Miracles. And we hold these Let's Discuss online webinars to express our vision of extending love through Course teachings. Today, we bring you Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles and Addiction. This event is being broadcast live and will run for approximately 90 minutes. We sincerely appreciate everyone who submitted questions in advance, and as always, we ask that Spirit guide our discussion, and time permitting, we will also take some live Q&A during the session closer to the end. So, if you're joining us live, you can submit your questions using the Q&A button at the edge of your screen. Today's conversation will be in English, and we will also provide live simultaneous Spanish translation for our Spanish audience. So to listen in Spanish, click the interpretation button in your webinar controls and select the Spanish channel. We will also post these instructions in the chat for those needing them. Okay, so before we introduce our panelists, I invite you to take a moment for us to pause and center ourselves in prayer. In chapter 2 of A Course in Miracles, the Course reminds us that there is much we can do on behalf of our own healing and that of others if we think of situations in this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. So now it's time to introduce our session today. Addiction is often understood in terms of external behaviors, substance abuse, compulsive habits, and other physical dependencies. But what if addiction is something else? What if it's a mind pattern, a belief in lack, or a form of seeking outside ourselves what we already have within? While A Course in Miracles doesn't use the word addiction, it does address the mind over and over, and it points us to our mistaken belief in fear, guilt, separation, and the illusion of unworthiness. Like the 12-step program, A Course in Miracles offers a path to healing through forgiveness, inviting us to move beyond survival and into liberation. So, in today's session, we plan to explore addiction through the lens of A Course in Miracles and also the parallels that exist between the Course and the 12 steps in healing addiction, and also how can Course principles be applied practically in breaking free. So, and with that, I am pleased to introduce our guest participants for today's discussion. We have a group of mighty companions with us today who are course practitioners and spiritual teachers, and we have been touched by the experience of addiction in different ways. The Foundation's Chief of Development, Laura Fenamore, joins me today, and we also have course practitioners Maureen Muldoon, Megan Lassman, and Todd Fink. Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to you all. So glad to have you. Before we dive into today's discussion, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this session was suggested by Laura Fenamore, who I just mentioned is our Chief Development Officer at the Foundation. And Laura's been really passionate about bringing this topic forward, recognizing how deeply addiction intertwines with Course teachings on healing and forgiveness. And so as we prepared today, we received so many heartfelt questions from people interested in the subject, people who are here. And many asked different things too about food addiction, compulsive habits, how to apply the course principles in daily life, etc. So we'll be going through a lot of those questions. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Laura and have her share why this conversation is so important right now and how she sees the connection between A Course in Miracles and addiction. So thanks so much, Laura. I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Celina. That was a beautiful introduction, and I'm just so grateful to everyone that is here, whether you're live or you're listening later on. Just welcome, welcome, welcome to this safe, supportive, I like to call it a cocoon. We have a little love cocoon here. And I want to ground my own space right now by reading something that I read pretty much every day, and that is this holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you certain that your direction gives me peace. And it cannot be that it is hard to do the task that Christ appointed you to do, since it is he who does it. Well, in that last one, I couldn't hear that when I was a practicing addict. And the way that I personally describe myself as an addict is I was distracted, I was avoiding, I was resisting, and I was escaping. And I can't honestly say that I don't do that sometimes now, but I do know that the way that it was and the way that it is right now are truly different. And for me, it was one blue book meeting another blue book. AA helped me find, AA and OA helped me find the blue book of A Course in Miracles. So I want to just start with that and introduce the other panelists and have them share about what it is about this topic that drew them to it. So Maureen, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here with you. Yes, hi, I'm Maureen and I'm an alcoholic. I mean, so many and so many other things. And yeah, that's really how I got through the door when I was 18. I've been in the recovery conversation since I was 18 years old, and I would have gotten here sooner if I knew where to find it. And I come, earning my seat, from my own addiction, but also from experiencing it wreak havoc on other people in my lives. And I and like Laura, the first doorway for me was the 12 step. And from there, it really cleared away a lot of wreckage from my past. But I as much as and this is my own personal experience, as much as I worked it, I didn't get the real final last crucifixion until I got to A Course in Miracles. And but that's my own experience, and I know everybody evolves in their own life school at the pace that they go and through the doorways that they go. But I'm super grateful that I have these two books on my bookshelf and very few others at this point. So I'm grateful to be here in the conversation.
Thanks, Maureen. And Todd, what brought you to this conversation?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for sharing, Maureen. And thank you for the honesty and the openness and vulnerability with this conversation. My background is in social work and psychology, and I've done a lot of addiction counseling over the past 15, 20 years. And I think my lifelong zeal for spirituality, seeking practice, and then transitioning as an older person into a mentor and teacher of spirituality, I've been curious how I could be of service for people struggling in this area of life. And while my clinical side, reveals some things about addiction as like a psychological problem with its symptoms like craving or genetics, other things happening in brain and organs. Addiction itself is also a symptom at the metaphysical level, which can be addressed like with the wisdom of A Course in Miracles. So life is multidimensional, and I'm really looking forward to participating today and grateful for the opportunity to be with you and to share. And I think it's really important to also have the perspective of people who have journeyed through this. In my work, I've also found that people who have found healing, redemption, at one-ment, as is taught in the Course in Miracles, have become some of the most important spiritual counselors in my world. And so I think there is something to be explored there as well when we're struggling with shame or stigma and healing in that sense. So thank you all for welcoming me and including me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Todd. And Megan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan. I'm an alcoholic. I love that word. So, wow, the Course in Miracles. I got sober, and I was about 7 years sober and missed that really integral piece of sobriety, which is having a God in my life. Like, never had it. And so it wasn't until I hit this really dark place in sobriety, and realized that the hole in my soul, I was still filling it with a lot of stuff and stuff outside myself, because I still felt, like Todd talked about, a lot of shame and and I was a victim of this world for sure. And stumbled upon this blue book, which I thought was absolutely insane. I was like, this is crazy. And I just kept coming back to it. And I never knew that I could have peace. Never knew what that was. Somebody in the comments just said, my addiction is chaos. I see you. I feel you. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Celina, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I was just going over, we've received hundreds of questions, and there were so many people who asked in, different categories from understanding addiction from an ACIM perspective. And I thought maybe it would be a good way to start and launch into the conversation a little bit more. Todd mentioned, life is multidimensional. And, the Course does much to speak to us to be aware of our minds and our thoughts. And I just would like to know a little bit more of what it meant for all of you to have all of these experiences. Addiction has touched your lives in different ways. It has touched all of our lives in different ways. But as far as being course students, I mean, how can we launch in from there? What has impacted you the most?
Well, I'm going to just share that one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to the forum of the Foundation for Inner Peace is because through the years, I have been speaking to friends of the foundations, donors, subscribers, people. And when I start in conversation with them, I am very out about the fact that I'm a recovering alcoholic, that I was a food addict, that I was addicted to cigarettes and drugs. And I mean, people are like, what? A lot of people just, they see a picture of me and they're like, I can't believe it, but it's all true. And they are like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you're sharing this because, I'm a closet AA person, or I'm a closet course person, and people are starving for community. They're starving for God, as far as I'm concerned. But I was starving for God. I always believed in God, but I didn't think that God believed in me because I didn't believe in myself. I was so unlovable. I was so it's for everyone else. And I was thinking about this before, how when I finally came around to admitting that I had a problem, even though I was 100 pounds heavier, I was drinking every day, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, I was hating myself. I would go to therapists and I would say, you don't understand. I am a hopeless, helpless case. And that is how I felt. So if there's anyone out there right now that can relate to that, just know that there's hope and there is help. And we're here to support you. So who else wants to ping off of that?
Great, Laura.
Well, in regards to what it brings you, I mean, the similarities between these two programs is that they have no hierarchy. It's so rare. I mean, it's so absolutely rare that you can walk in and have the same value and viability and vantage point as someone else. Even no matter how many days you have, everyone's experience is just as worthy as the next guy. And that we have that in A Course in Miracles too, when it says to be a teacher of God, you decide you are. I remember thinking there's no hoop to jump through, there's no special handshake. And it's no, that's a very rare and beautiful thing. And I think that key component in both the programs makes healing more accessible, because we're not making special, places or people where you have to go and get or be or do. And instead, everything you need is it. Both of these courses are turning us back inside ourselves. Like, I know the 12 steps does say, like, have a sponsor. And, in Course in Miracles, you have mighty companions. So it's not too dissimilar. But in regards to going through, I imagine that people come to the 12 step as I came, because there was no place else to go, and I was ravaged and broken. And I used to sort of think that was sort of a precursor, and that people who come to A Course in Miracles don't have to be that tenderized. But I know that when I came to the Course in Miracles, I was equally as I was still very much in need of healing. And so the similarities are really there. And I feel like the similarities in these two books aren't really there in a lot of other places. And that's why I think they're so tongue and groove, the way they work together. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the biggest thing, the thing that like blew my mind the most about Course in Miracles was the idea of forgiveness for myself before anything else. That was radical. I just never knew I could even forgive myself. And so, like Maureen was saying, I got to AA, obviously not on a winning streak, wasn't my best day, right? And for me, my experience in AA was very like regimented, and it was very kind of like, you will do this, you will do that. And it's what I needed at the time, and it saved my life. And then I got I got to Course in Miracles, and Maureen was like, oh, okay, great, you're a teacher of God. And I was like, wait a second, are you sure? She was like, yeah, I just said it. And I was like, but I don't know what the paragraph means. She's like, yeah, you do. Just slow down and tell me what you think it means. And so the idea, and I do sponsor a ton of women, and what comes out of my mouth more than anything is not only forgiveness, but grace and ease and peace. What? I'm like, no, you can be easy on yourself. It's okay. So
beautiful, Megan. Really beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing up forgiveness. And it is true that it was the thing that I made up, that when I got clean and sober, I couldn't forgive the 12 steps. For me, it's like I needed something more. And while I say that AA saved my life and Overeaters Anonymous saved my life, I felt like I needed another step, again, just for me. And that step was to get out of victim. And the only way for me to get out of victim was to start this relationship with God that showed me the way to forgiveness. And it changed my life. It saved my life.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing that is wonderful about both these programs is that, and the 12 step has the slogan, one day at a time. And in the Course in Miracles, it's like one lesson at a time. Like, it's really like a daily respite. It's not like you get to take you can take a vacation, but it never really works out well. And so there's a beautiful consistency in both of these programs if you work it the way that it's, I like to say, like, you could read the book and read the lessons, you could apply the lessons, or you can let the book eat you. You know what I mean? Let the book embody you. And you can smell the difference when somebody's working a program or speaking a program, when somebody's reading a book or living a book.
I'd like to offer, those are beautiful insights. I'd like to offer another parallel that I noticed between the two programs, which is addiction as a symptom of separation, which is why in the 12 steps, it kind of begins with surrender and a foundation of fellowship, because it's kind of the beginning of ministering to the isolation. Conventionally speaking, people often think of the idea or the concept of ego as grandiose illusions of self, and we attribute it in psychology to like narcissism. But if we come back to this fundamental principle of separation, we see how it really is consistent across a lot of mental health struggles. The idea that I am alone, that I don't matter. And what's kind of ironic about addiction in this sense is that it often begins as a social lubricant. It kind of is insidious in the sense that person actually believes this is what actually is connecting me to others, giving me liquid courage, so to speak, if it's alcohol, or numbing my anxiety in social situations. But it almost inevitably, always inevitably, as it progresses, leads to isolation. And so, yeah, the parallel there is trying to overcome the illusion of separateness, and through service and through fellowship, it starts to expose the individual, the seeker, to the deeper realities of their connection. And even in our like laboratory studies of addiction, the classic understanding of addiction in biology comes from a rat in a cage that chooses heroin or cocaine laced water over regular water. But eventually, scientists updated this experiment with a rat in Rat Park, a cage 200 times that size with everything that would make it connected and happy and fulfilled, but with two choices of water. And in those conditions, the rat almost never chooses the drug water and never overdoses. So even in that sense in science, we see the correlation between connection and recovery or healing, and isolation as a petri dish for a lot of mental health struggles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really helpful, Todd. And I want to say that another comparison that really has helped me is the concept of willingness, and that the Course says all that we need is a little bit of willingness. AA says the exact same thing. I mean, just the desire and the willingness. And I'll tell you what, that was for me. It's like, oh, all I have to do is be willing.
Yeah.
That's it. And then God will take over. What? And it's like, yeah, that's how it works. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, so as much as my recovery helped me to like look at my behaviors, like what was right with my addiction, right? Like why did I use that? The Course taught me to look at the stories I wasn't willing to let go of, and the relationships that I continued to hurt time and time again because I wasn't willing to let go of all of the trauma and drama. Don't laugh at me, Maureen. Like, right? But it's so true. Like specifically, and I know Maureen knows this, but specifically with my mother and my mom, and I have talked about this. We've kind of uncovered this generational trauma of like not enoughness. The women in her family. And I just held on to that story of not enoughness and just used it to harm myself until I found the Course. Well, it took me a little time while I was in the Course, but I was I know, Laura, you were saying willingness. I was willing to tell you that I'm holding on to the story, but I was willing to do that. I was like, I'm not letting this go. And Maureen was like, great. We'll see you tomorrow. You know?
But the thing is that what you're sharing and then what Todd shared is that like we walk each other home. Yeah. Like we need community. Like we totally need community, and that sense of isolation. It just I don't know, Todd, what you see in your clients is it feels like the chasm of separation in regards to how we interact with each other. Like everyone's on their phones, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's only exacerbating this isolation. So like when Megan and I, we meet every morning, like we connect every morning with our tribe of Course in Miracles people, and we get to put our finger on the pulse of what's going on with you and what's going on with me. And that's a rare thing, man. It's a rare thing.
You also made a powerful point about how for example, in spiritual fellowship or even in like a 12-step meeting, the success of somebody else feels like one's own success.
Yes.
And that is very rare, because if you think about what you're talking about with the cultural implications of technology and the reinforcements of separateness, somebody sees a highlight reel on social media and it doesn't make us feel good. It has the effect of almost diminishing somebody's sense of self-worth or feeling jealous. But fellowship kind of cuts through that, because those other kinds of connections are superficial. In social work, we have named this vicarious resilience, which is the opposite of vicarious trauma. We know if we witness suffering right before our eyes, it can traumatize us.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go deeper beyond the superficial connection, we'll also find that because of the truth about separation as an illusion, that means everybody's joy is really my own joy. Everybody's transformation is one's own. And that does break down the illusions of separateness as one engages with that. And then, Megan, you said this really brilliantly, the not enoughness, and which speaks to the grace of forgiveness, in the sense that where does this, I mean, that's what all of the shame has in common. It's always a not enoughness, not good enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, um, not strong enough, not worthy enough. But where does it come from? And this is where the grace and forgiveness comes in. It's an internalized belief. Somebody important, somebody hurt us, somebody violated our trust. And that would be a normal reaction for a child. Most addictions start to develop in childhood after some trauma, and the inherited or epigenetic piece, the stories of our ancestors, which we inherit. And then what's happened, the belief becomes internalized, not through our fault, but then we have the spiritual responsibility, as all seekers do, to cut through whatever is untrue. And so really it's an invitation then to see, hey, I've had these long held beliefs. They don't serve me, but where'd they come from? And why might they not be true? And that speaks to like what Laura said, with the willingness, to be able to turn towards the reality and recognize the pattern of avoidance. Why have I been avoiding myself? What does it mean? What is it? What am I afraid to feel? And 12 steps also say that addiction is, disorder of fear. And so, yeah, approaching this with love, which love is kind, curious, open, willing, omnipresent, all powerful, all pervading, and irreducible. We don't need a reason to be worthy. As soon as you introduce a reason, it ceases to become love. Now it's transactional again. Now it's conditional again. And if we understand love to be unconditional, then there's no parts to break it further down into. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Did you want to
Maureen.
add to that, Maureen?
Yeah.
Is there anything to add?
I know.
Exactly.
I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really great. And I guess the cliff notes is like, stay connected.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
stay connected, like figure that piece out, because we don't heal in a vacuum and we don't heal in isolation. And it's very vulnerable to come out and meet and speak and say and express and expose, but otherwise healing won't happen unless we do that.
Yeah.
Even in the course, we look at like, what's the meaning I've made of this? And to look at it with the Holy Spirit and to really assess, like, is this still serving me? And
Yeah.
and a lot of times we don't know how to do it. So having a few trusted friends around you to support, like, moving towards the light and moving towards your healing, I think it's an important component for both programs, actually.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
one of the reasons why I started with this is a safe, loving cocoon is I always want to speak to the people that don't feel safe, because I know what it's like to not feel safe. I know what it's like to feel like there's no community, that you feel like there's no one there for you. And we're all here to say, come out wherever you are, that there is safe space, there is community. I mean, Maureen runs this beautiful community every day. There's there's Course community. And one of the things about A Course in Miracles, it being a self-study course, is people feel like they have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And we're here to say, that's not true.
Mhm.
That's not true. There's
Yeah.
groups. What are you going to say, Maureen?
I was just gonna, I was just thinking about the very first time I walked into a 12-step program, you know what I mean? Like I thought, I don't want to tell you everything that's going on. You know what I mean? Like I'll just be a voyeur for some time, but that was okay. And like Todd was saying, like I healed through other people's healings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but the first time you come into anything is walking through that threshold of the ego who says like, you don't belong here, don't let them know who you are, try and put up a facade of what you think people want. And the vulnerability and the transparency that is required for healing is sometimes really hard to reach for. But like you said, like we're all getting naked together. So it's like nobody's standing outside the circle being like, I don't think so. Like everyone's getting naked together. Like everyone has something. I remember when my kid was young and we went through a divorce, and he was just rattled by this stigma of having divorced parents. And I was like, Owen, like everybody has stuff that they come through. Like this guy, and then he went through like all of his cousins. Like, what about Charlie? And I was like, his dad is a truck driver and he's never home. And he's like, what about this one? I was like, his sister has special needs, and so they have, extra. And I was like, please don't go through the whole Rolodex of everyone, because I don't want to like tell you the bad news about every family. But like these are the things that tenderize us, and these are the things that bring us together, and these are the things that ordain us so that we can be helpful to each other.
Yeah.
Every scar is a roadmap out of hell, and we get to share that with each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just share a story about?
Sure.
Okay. Talk about like being safe, right? So what I learned through the course was like, I am safe, I am loved, I am whole. Radically different than the messaging that I kept playing in my head over all these years, which was I'm broken, I'm not worthy of love and belonging, right? I'm not safe. Okay, so I'm in the DMV today, and I go to like step behind this woman, because I don't know why I didn't open my mouth, but I didn't. So I was like shimming behind her, and I came back from the bathroom, and she goes, you could have just said, excuse me. And I was like, right? And so what did I do? Go to my like happy place, which is shrink, right? Totally go inside, shrink. And I walked back to my daughter, like, oh my God. And then I sat down and I was like, oh, she's terrible. And I watched myself. I watched my thoughts, which is really interesting. I cycled through like anger and then sadness. And it was like, before I came back to like, whoa, that was crazy. Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. But I let myself get so swept away by that interaction, which is like what I've done my whole life. But now my turnaround time was way faster. And I came back to this place of being like, you're okay, babe. You're okay. And even if you did something that was, quote, wrong in her eyes, you're still okay.
Yeah. I think that's our first addiction, is that we think we're not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. It doesn't mean that I am a mistake, right? Which is what I've been walking the world believing. So I love her. She was great. Thank you, DMV.
Yeah, another great teacher, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's a simple entrance too, is because I remember when I was early in the program and my sponsor said to me, no matter where anyone is, no matter how broken they are, no matter how angry they are as they come into the threshold of this room, you can say two things for sure. And those two things were, I love you and everything's going to be okay. And I thought, no one loves me and I'm not okay and you're not okay and it's not okay. And so like just hearing those little slogans, as they say in the program, like sometimes we can't grasp the whole freaking book of A Course in Miracles. It's dense, but if you toss a few slogans out there, they can be super helpful,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this has taken a long time, but I approach it all now as this is happening for me, not to me. Because when I am a victim, God is gone. There's no God. I can't access God. So I went from believing that there was a God, except that God wasn't there for me, just for everybody else in the world. And then when I finally started to believe that God was there for me, I still felt tortured and unlovable. And then I found this book, and Jesus says on every page, I'm holding your hand in his own way. I am holding your hand, and you're never, ever going to be alone or comfortless. And it's like, really? Really?
Mm.
Really? And so I didn't know if somebody else wanted to say something, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we got a lot of questions, actually 7 pages of questions. So thank you for all of those questions. And while we wish that we could answer all of them, we can touch on many of them. And I actually, oh, you're going to jump in?
No, when you're ready, Laura, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but I'll have somewhere to go when you're done. Finish what you were
You go,
saying.
girl. You
Are you
go.
sure? Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I was looking at some of the questions that are also coming in live and reading the chat. People have been submitting really brilliant things. As I'm sitting there listening to you all, you've all had something that I'm like, oh, I want to sit and reflect with that. And then somebody else goes and they say something, a gem, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's yeah, a lot to absorb. But here's just a couple of things like bring up that touches on what you all have shared. Steve shared, as Richard Rohr has said, and I'm not sure who that is we are all addicts addicted to a very cunning and deceptive thought system. Every other so-called addiction is the effect of ego consciousness. So I thought that was great. We also have something that was submitted by a Gary, and I'm going to read it to you because it touches on what you said. But he wanted to go in a little bit deeper about the impact of guilt and guilt projection on addiction. So I asked him to share a little bit more what he's talking about, and he said, "I've dedicated the past year to paying close attention of how much guilt intrudes on my thinking. It's an ever present ego device that tries to make me feel bad about myself or others. I was attracted to this particular talk because there was a line in the description that addiction comes in all forms watching TV, reading books. It's the subtle addictions that we overlook and don't recognize how they distract us. My biggest breakthrough came in learning to shut up and be silent so the Holy Spirit can talk to me. He calls the Holy Spirit Ted. Um, so guilt keeps us trapped. So many people seek for the past reason that they are messed up and they're looking for who to blame before they can kick their addiction. We're tempted to place guilt on others when when the reality is we are simply trying to hide the fact that we feel bad about our addictions and our flaws. So anything that you all want to go into about like the impact of guilt as course students?
Yeah, that's really powerful stuff right there. You know, fear is first cousins to guilt. And
Mm.
in the course we're told that we're innocent and that everyone is innocent. And in my own life, yeah, I too have really had to look at guilt and how unconscious it is and how quick it is. I mean, it certainly is exactly like the ego. It speaks first and loudest, and as soon as it speaks, you're as good as done. You know, you feel guilty, and you're just that place is so debilitating. And so to remind ourselves of our innocence is also to remind ourselves of our joy and to feed in the constructive opposite, because a guilty person will be so devastating to themselves and withhold everything from themselves. And so like to really reawaken that innocence and that child within us, and to walk with the Holy Spirit in regards to healing that. Like I feel I really appreciate that take on it, because I really do feel like guilt has been devastating. It's like our spiritual kryptonite. So that's what I would say about that. And it's not a light switch. I mean, when you're ready to heal it, for myself, I remember I was ready to heal it, and I was actually at a Course in Miracles conference in Chicago, and I was stuck between a rock and a hard place around what my decision would be in regards to a certain situation, and both of them made me feel guilty. So I had to go with the less guilty, and then can just work from there and just expand from there and start to acquire a taste for innocence, for my own innocence, for your innocence. but it's a worthy walk. And that's what I'd say.
Wow.
Thank you, Maureen.
you.
I think the reframing of guilt, sin, shame by A Course in Miracles is quite profound. I think guilt and sin has been captured and weaponized by institutions of control and hierarchy, even within religious religious groups. And so back to Maureen's point about the non-hierarchy, which is super important. And this reframing in A Course in Miracles really takes the concept of sin or good and evil as real and unreal, or truth and illusion. And that really does facilitate self-forgiveness and forgiveness for others. When it's like there's an example in the ancient Vedic text of the illusion of seeing a rope as a snake. So no matter what happens while seeing a snake, the fear that one lives with, the avoidance of that rope, it never made the rope a snake. So there was never any truth in that, but it really explains the behavior and the illusion and the spell that one might be under, which, clear perception or perception of truth would then facilitate the letting go of the unreal, because nothing was really ever threatened in that sense.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Giving ourselves for thinking something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank
I
God.
love when you said the ego speaks first and loudest, right? And that was revolutionary, because I was like, what are you talking about? Like there's only one voice in my head, right? And so that was wild. I now come to understand my ego is like little version Megan, 2, 3-year-old toddler Megan that's having a temper tantrum. Whether it's I'm not getting my way, or my favorite is, if you could just do what I wanted, that would be great. So then I would feel okay, because I walked the world always looking for other people and things to give me that safety. The other thing I was going to say about guilt is it's like continuing to like romance the problem over and over and over and over again.
Mm.
Yeah, for
Wow.
sure. For sure. And the beautiful antidote that is, available in both of the programs is that we get to find a God of our own understanding. Like we can sort of begin to recultivate this relationship with God. When we say seek first God, when 12 steps says first things first, when we say, that we go to the Holy Spirit, if you have a broken down God, you're not going to go to God. If you have a God that is judgmental or vindictive or jealous or angry or, wrathful, so the Course heals our relationship with what we call God, which is a very polluted concept. It can heal your concept of what you call Jesus. It can heal your concept of what you call love. And that can begin in the 12-step program when we say, like, finding a God of your own understanding. I don't know about you, but I came from a very interesting religion that I had so many very warped beliefs about what God was, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted to run as far as I could from it because it didn't feel friendly or kind or nice. And so we get to heal that. And as we heal that, guilt seems like you just don't have the budget for it. You have no need for it.
If you think about this happiness or relief that has been touched on, when somebody's happily in the arms of their lover, they're not worried at that moment about where they are, or they're not suspicious at that moment. When somebody has the drink or eats the food to numb the feelings, at that moment the craving is released. And so people make the mistake of believing it was the lover, it was the food, it was the drink that brought peace, but really it was the temporarily relaxing into truth, which is non-craving, non-striving, non-grasping, because the truth is the oneness or the unity. My teacher once told me that some dogs take the bone and gnaw on it, very guardedly behind the couch or something. And after chewing on it for hours, sometimes their gums start to bleed and they drink their own blood, thereby believing that the blood was only in the bone. But of course, the blood is always inside as a metaphor for the truth is inside, the happiness is inside, or as Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's not some place you would have to seek and acquire, or conditional upon some attaining some object.
Well, going back to your example. Oh, sorry, Maureen.
No, I just want to say amen to that, because like as high as we ever got on any addiction, like we get so blissed out on the awesome nature of God. I mean, there's something, I mean, you get to touch the hem of the divine and maybe fall all the way in. And so, yes, amen to that. That's all. I'll pass.
What I was going to say is that I still want to address that cycle, that mental cycle that happens after you're in bliss and you have the ice cream or you have the food or you have the drink and you feel like I'm one with, and then the guilt starts and it 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 doesn't feel like there's a way out. And there is. And still, it's that we're here to remember together. We're here to remember together that this cycle can be broken. Todd, were you just going to jump in and say something?
Yeah, because I think what you're saying is so important. The cycle, right? So, at least from the clinical side, the modulating factor in the body and in the mind is tolerance. So the more a person believes that their relief, that their happiness is tied to the relationship, tied to the status, tied to the food, tied to the drug, well, habituation happens, hedonic adaptation happens. So if one drink, you thought it gave you that amount of relief, it'll take two. This is like biological inflation. So it'll cost more money, it'll cost more units of the substance or whatever it is. And that will begin the cycle of separation and harm, because a person will have to chase more, hide more, work more, thereby getting more and more separated from their values and the things that they love, until they can recognize, wait a minute, I'm attempting to fill a void with this pattern of illusion. And so, yeah, we might say that somebody eventually hits some kind of awakening with this, or some kind of rock bottom where there's a realization that I can't lose anymore, or this is like a downward spiral that doesn't have any solution. And hopefully a person can eventually become curious about hope and an alternative approach to their suffering. So thank you for pointing that out.
And I would say it's the most beautiful place to meet someone.
Mm-hmm.
It is just the most beautiful place. And I talk to Maureen sometimes and I'm like, I don't know what I do, like that age-old question of like, hi, I'm blah, 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 and this is what I do. And I'm like, what? There is nothing greater than walking into a meeting and meeting someone at one of their lowest points in their life and extending a hand and offering hope. It's the greatest gift I've ever been given in my life. There's no letters after my name. There's nothing like that. And yet I can look at them and say, it's okay. Just let me hold your hand. There's a way out.
Yeah.
It really is beautiful, and it exemplifies the idea of our walking each other home. And it also exemplifies the idea that an idea shared is strengthened. Like we invest in the world we want to live in, because we're going to hit bottom again sometime. It might not be over an addiction, but we'll find ourselves there. And to know that you sort of invest in this world where people help each other up, man. I mean, that's heaven on earth. That's what it's all about. And if your addiction brought you to this place, then thank your addiction for it, because it was your finishing school. It was your ministerial school.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that too, Maureen, because our lowest point is often when we see it from the upward spiral, looking at the same circumstances from the mountaintop. Those are often the crucibles to wisdom or alchemy, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it's all alchemy, doesn't it? I mean, it feels like it's all like the hero's journey. Like you get called into this, to this life, and your parents are going to be this, and your lover's going to be this, and you're going to be broken 1,000 times, and you're like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And yet you don't really have a choice, because you're going to be groomed through it, and you're going to be, you know, you're going to be amplified through it, and you're going to find the elixir so that you can be of service. And that's talked about a great deal in the 12 step, being of service. I think it's talked about in A Course in Miracles, where we say we're walking each other home and we forgive our brother. And there's more of the oneness thing in the course, in the 12 step, but the idea of service, I think it's the antidote to isolation.
Yeah.
I think it's medicine. I really do. Like, if I am not serving, like, I just feel like my life is service, and that's the
Right.
thing that keeps me going. It's
Yeah.
just invaluable, because it just gives me energy. So I'm just so grateful. And Megan, your story, I mean, it's like, it's true. I mean, if it weren't for all the people that said to me, I want to help you, I'm here for you, it's been invaluable in my life.
Yeah.
You,
But
you,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no. What were you going to say, Maureen?
I was just going to say, to somebody who's in their cups with addiction, service seems like insane.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I came to the 12 step and my sponsor was like, you're going to set up the chairs. I'm like, why? I'm in pain, don't you see? And then I would call her, I'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, okay, great. I have your answer. Call 10 people and see how they're doing. I'd be like, what? Why? And now I give out that same advice sometimes, and people are like, I don't want to call people and ask them how they're doing. What if they tell me their problems? I go, like, you're calling me and telling me your problems? It's kind of funny, that service from the egoic point of view, it sounds terrible, but from a healed mind, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets us quiet, like, the space in between the thoughts where I actually am. It's amazing if I can get there as often as possible, but that's what I'm like, oh, like I gratefully sponsor a lot of women, and every time the phone rings, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
dear
Yeah.
God, no, I can't think about myself for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the best.
I'm going to just jump in here for a second before we pivot to another, because you all have drawn so many beautiful parallels between ACIM and the 12 steps. And Maureen's last few comments made me think about this comment that came in through the chat by Lenny, who said, in my experience, Course in Miracles is more lofty and 12 steps are more gritty. Each has its own roads with the same source. Can you guys expand on that a little bit more? Do you all agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Lenny. And it almost feels to me, but again, like, I can't say what's true for you. You might have found Course in Miracles first and then found the 12 step. But for me, and for a lot of people I know, it seems like the 12 step has come first, and it kind of clears a lot of the grit away. And for people who have never gone through the 12 steps, you've gone through a divorce, or you've gone through a devastating heartbreak, or you've gone through the thing that is pre-groomed you or preordained you for being able to heal and hear what the Course now has to say. I feel like there's a cracking open that happens. So yeah, for me, the 12 steps were very gritty and a bit more maybe accessible at first. Like Megan was saying, when I opened the Course in Miracles, it was like, what the heck? And we hear a lot of people saying, like, what is this? Whereas the 12 step, I think I came because I had no place else to go. So I was a little bit more willing to fight my way through what the heck it was trying to say. And it does, I don't know that the book feels grittier. I was grittier.
Mm-hmm. You were grittier during the 12-step process.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. A lot more ragged and rugged, and then got a bit of elegance through that program, and then even more through A Course in Miracles. I'll pass.
That's great.
And I would totally agree with that. I mean, when I got into recovery when I was 24 years old, I tried to kill myself because I couldn't see any other way out. Child abuse and just pain and foster care. And I was done. I was absolutely done with this lifetime. And somebody said to me, I'm going to love you until you learn to love yourself. And I basically said, go to hell to this person. I was like, I am so unworthy of love. I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, but you are lovable. And I said, no, I'm not. And I could think of a billion reasons why I could, tell her, not true. But it took me to my knees. I went to a meeting, and what I heard was, all you have to do is be willing. And I was like, okay, I can be willing. So I specifically wore this shirt today because I do love love, but it reminds me of the layers of the onion. Those of us that are 12 steppers know the layers of the onion I used to call it the onion from hell. Like, am I ever going to get to the center of that onion? Is there ever going to be a center? And it's like, the center is now. Yeah, the center is now. It's this moment is the center. And it's a beautiful thing. And there's no there, whatever I imagined. Like, I didn't think that I was worthy to be part of this organization because I'm not a course scholar. I'm not a teacher of the course, even though, I've been practicing it for years. I didn't think I was worthy of it. And that's just the truth for me. And it's also an untruth for me. It's yes and. And so I'm just grateful for that onion. So grateful.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
one other comparison, the pain comes when we take it too seriously, right? Like both programs, all separation happens when the Son of God remembers not to laugh. And I was saying before we got started that the golden bridge between the two of these programs is that 12 step says we're here to be happy, joyous, and free. And the Course in Miracles tells us happiness is our function. I wanted to say the other F word there because it's so awesome. But it's our freaking function. Like, how did we get so lucky that we got on this, golden brick road towards like our happiness? And I think that, I used to say in the Course in Miracles when I was teaching other teachers, I would say, like, if you're ever in a meeting of 12 step or Course in Miracles and there's not laughter, get the fuck out of there. Because they've taken it too seriously.
Yeah.
And you deserve to be healing and joy, and you can heal in joy. And that's my own personal preference, but I place my life on it.
Yeah.
I would just say this. It was a street fight for me with both programs. Like, I came in pissed off with both of them. Just like you, Laura, I came into AA and someone was like, here's a packet of phone numbers. And I was like, you can bug off, right? And it came into Courts and Miracles and they were like, whoo, you're safe, lapped, and whole. And I was like, you're all crazy. Like, no, not okay. So if someone out there feels that way, like, it was a street fight because in AA, I was learning to stop relying, like Todd was saying, like, stop, Megan, stop picking up the thing, the bottle, the boys, the band, the drug, the whatever. I could not find my own conception of God. I just couldn't. I don't know why. Not until I got to the course. And then I fought that with like tooth and nail too. And one of my first teachers was like, that's cute. You're just running around with your hands over your eyes, screaming at everybody that it's dark. And she was like, just slow down for a second. Let me take your hands off your eyes. Like, let me turn you around so you can see the light. It was wild. I was like, what?
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that, Megan. Street fight, because I haven't been through AA, but having been a student of course for a while now, I mean, for me, it was really gritty. I felt like I was doing my most work. I call it like when the rubber meets the road, like when you finally get a sense of what this thought system is. And then you say, okay, wait, this is coming up in me. You even made mention of like the space between your thoughts. But when you let those things come up, it can be very, very painful. And that's for me, when the rubber met the road is when I was really allowing myself, and as of course say, watch it with the Holy Spirit, ask for help and watch it. And that is what I think I've made my most progress is by doing that. But It's simple, but it's not easy. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, just to throw more filters over illusion. I really want to sell it like a happy, joyous, and free thing. Yes, it's deep. Yes,
Funny.
there's like serious work. Yes, you have to forgive people you fucking hate and you think I will never. And then all of a sudden you find yourself doing that and it absolutely feels gritty. But man, I guess it's just like it's gritty. It's actually the easier way though. I mean, it's so hard to hold a grievance and it robs you of everything. And I think you get to the point where you know that. And then you realize you're not just robbing yourself, you're robbing everyone. You're robbing everyone of everything. And so it's gritty, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's a
And you
it's a
can
great
laugh.
way to connect those ideas, Maureen, that the real grit is in the resistance. You know?
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
heaviest grit is in the holding on to something.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say, for so long when I started studying the course, I don't know, I grew up believing that like my worth is tied to how much I do. I was a human doing, right? And a large part of my human doing was anxiety and stress. And I remember when I first started studying the course, I would say to Maureen, "Oh my God, I'm so stressed out. And I can't remember what I'm stressed out about, but I'm really stressed." And she was like, "What? What? Maybe you're not stressed anymore, right?" Like I was so addicted to that thought pattern of like, I need to just like battle all day, every
Mm.
day. And when I suddenly realized I could just like rest in just being instead of doing. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Who else can relate to that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It really, I mean, peace is so expansive, and at first it can seem boring. It's so expansive, you know? But it's like just because I don't have a tolerance for peace, I don't have a tolerance for gentleness, I don't have a tolerance for, lack of efforting.
Mm.
Everything has come through effort. So it is really hard to, it is hard to undo that sometimes, but man, we do get there.
Yeah. Yep.
I think change can be scary too, like any kind of change. I can think on some of my like darker periods or existential anxiety. And, the idea of breaking out of some comfort zone, even though like addiction is uncomfortable, it's familiar. So it becomes comfortable in that sense. And shifting into like a different way of being or different mode of existing is really intimidating, really scary. And I think it stirs up a lot of our deeply internalized limiting beliefs about not being good enough, not, not having whatever it takes to be successful at this new way. It really explains why so many things, like for a person who doesn't struggle with that particular problem, why it looks so obvious. Like, why wouldn't you leave this relationship? It's unhealthy, it's abusive. But for that person, outside of the relationship is fear of the unknown or fear of losing the known. So we, our only thing we know is memory, or what we think we know, and that's always backwards. So it's always kind of a gravity that's like sucking us back into an old or familiar way of doing things. And when we get stressed, which is a crucial element of addiction, it triggers us to go back to what we did the most to cope. So even when people like learn about, or when we learn about like these alternative approaches to mending, to healing, you may find in the moment of stress, you go back to the binge eating, or you go back to the isolation. And, I see people get really discouraged at that point. But once they understand that that's a normal part of the process, the non-linear path, where you're like taking some steps and like all of a sudden I went 3 steps back, but not to the beginning. It's because a person falls back in the hole, because then they learn about stress, and then they learn about what could trigger their stress, and they, eventually start moving forward.
I'm so glad you said that, Todd. It's so helpful and it's so gentle. because we really do, if we don't do it perfectly, we don't do it. And that's not going to work in regards to the course or the 12 step. Like, people read the course with me, and it's like every hour on the hour, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do this, and it's like I can count on a 2-finger hand how perfectly I've done the course any given day. Like, it just that doesn't happen. But it's really kind to remind ourselves progress, not perfection. You know what I mean? That we are moving forward, even if you don't think you're moving forward. And that loyalty to your old self is real, and it's real for your family and your tribe too. When I got sober, my first family member, I said that I was going to, attempt sobriety. She was like, "What about us?" I was like, dude, I gotta save my ass. I can't carry you guys with me, So it is interesting, but I did feel like I'm leaving the tribe. This alcohol is our breath. Like, yeah, what about us? Who do I become? So there is a lot of vacillation that can happen, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was great, Todd. I appreciate that too. I do remember that when I got sober, all the people that said to me actually left me and said, we want the party girl and we miss the party girl and we don't want, we just like can't be around you anymore. That was hard. But I also had the support and community of AA to hold me up when that people were throwing punches and blades at me. And like, there was that to deal with too, on top of my like starting to feel my feelings after 25 years of isolating them. So I want to say that there are lots of questions that have come in, and people have asked questions around sex addiction, around food, around sugar, around alcohol, and a lot of people ask questions about what do I do for the addict in my life? And we talked about giving practical solutions. Of course, all of us have had experience of being, like we've been in recovery for a long time, but not everybody that's listening now and later have. So I want to ask us to just share some practical solutions for people in regards to A Course in Miracles.
Well, in regards to addiction, what I would say is if you're dealing with someone else's addiction, like, get a sponsor, get a friend, get somebody who's going to help you see through your own blind spots of codependency, because that is a thick, thick wall that sometimes blocks complete vision. And I know that with my own family members' addiction, I couldn't see it, and I kept thinking I could do something to save them. And it was a devastating journey, and it took me way too long to get there, I suppose. But finally, a friend of mine who was in the program was like, you have to let them go. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to let them go, because love would never do that. She was like, you can drive him to a homeless shelter or to a rehab. And I was like, I'm never going to take him to a homeless shelter. And she said, you don't have to, just be willing. Like, are you willing? And I have very small willingness, but I was willing. And when I said to this person in my life, when I said, I got you up this morning and I got all your paperwork ready, and you've got 2 choices. You're going to go to a rehab, and they stopped me and they said, wait, they said, I'm ready. And they never left the rehab, and they're still sober today. And I never had to say, I'll take you to a homeless shelter. I never had to say that, but I was willing to say it. And I think what you touched on earlier, Laura, was the willingness. It's really scary, but with God, we're capable of so many things. And addiction seems devastating. And on the morning calls that I facilitate every day in the last 10 years, there's been about 4 moms who got on the calls with us, and their sons didn't wake up that morning because fentanyl or some other, addiction had taken them out. Devastating, absolutely devastating. But they were on the calls, and they got up to do the lesson with us, and they let us carry them. And they got on the next day, and they got on the next day, and we walk each other home. And sometimes it's absolutely devastating. And it's not your fault. It's the journey of that soul. And that's what I'd say about that.
That's beautiful, Maureen. I would second that. I've worked with a lot of addicts, but I've also supported family members. And yes, you know, I think there's a lot of healing that all of us can benefit from. So this woman that I've worked with most recently, I was like, how about we just work on you? What else is there?
Yes.
How about we work on you?
Hmm.
So she, in particular, went to Al-Anon, and it's been transformative. Again, just to have someone hold her hand and say, let's keep our eyes on what we can change. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If integrating the wisdom of ACIM into like my own clinical training and understanding in my work, I would say minister to the fear. When we talk about the choices between love and fear, or the path between love and fear, or darkness, which is the absence of something, and light, which is the truth. So that means the fear in ourselves. I'm so afraid I'm going to lose this person. I'm so afraid that about what could happen. But we learn from this wisdom that whatever is true is always true. Whatever's unreal is unreal, and what's real is never threatened, right? So if we can first minister to ourselves, and then how do we minister to the fear in the other person who may be struggling? By reassuring the truth of one's love. Many of us have been socialized into the belief that we need an intervention. And the reason why we've understood that to be ineffective in the research is because, as we've been discussing today, about ego and separation that kind of underscores addiction. Well, when a family goes and threatens what's true, which is unity, connection, says, if you don't change, we're cutting you off. Well, then it almost, ensures that the person will say, well, I might as well betray you now then. At least that's what the addiction is going to say, because I already feel alone, right? But I think the simplest, like, supportive words when you're starting to go through this, or when you're looking for the next step, is to simply reassure, no matter what, I love you. I'm always here for you. And that's not the same as enabling or materially supporting somebody's self-destructive habit. It's just saying, whether you're healthy or unhealthy, I still love you, because my love for you is not conditional. And I will continue to support you in that sense, and I'll never leave you alone.
Yeah. Thank you, Todd. I have many active alcoholics and people in my life. Yeah, thank you, Todd. And September 16th of last year, I lost my nephew to fentanyl. He was 37. So that journey, because I met the kid when he was 11. He's my partner's son, nephew. So he's my nephew through marriage. And to say that we did everything to support him is the understatement of the year. Like hook, line, and sinker. And what Maureen always says, all healing is mutual. It's the Course says all healing is mutual. And I know for the active addicts in my life today, and for all the people that I've wanted to save in my life, that the salvation is within me. And if I can heal my mind, then I can heal the world. So it's just so important to remember that over and over and over again. And my healing and practical steps for people always is to find community, whether it's through Maureen's community, whether it's through AA, whether it's to find people, places, and things that can support you and hold you up. Because being in this dream can be wonderful, but really hard, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And there is community out there. So it may appear that like we're like over the fence because we've all been sober or working with, but we're still dealing with our own shit and getting support through it. Really
I just want
important.
to add to that real quick, Laura, that there's a fascinating example at the societal level of the incredible progress that the country of Portugal has made in the 21st century in reducing addiction. And the transformative change in policy was decriminalizing all addiction, but crucially reinvesting the same resources that were used to separate, punish, and incarcerate people struggling with addiction to reconnect them with community. So part of the response, the legal response, was always to connect them to community, to resources, to training, to job opportunities, to actually minister whatever else was creating barriers to connection, as you said. So I think we could really take a lot from that page in terms of our own practice and spiritual communities. How can we minister to the separateness?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. Goosebumps. Thank you all for sharing what you've shared. You answered someone who wrote in who said they were all on the other side of this. And their question really was how to handle the trauma of the struggle and the grief that they're experiencing now after their loved one has passed. So I think you've answered that. I didn't have to say it, but what you said was beautiful. Okay, well, time is a coming soon. Is there anything else that comes up in your mind or heart that you feel?
Well, I want to talk about Maureen Muldoon's community because I'm actually a part of her community.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this beautiful community where Megan is also a teacher. And maybe you could say something more, but I've been a part of this community for years. And even though I'm an outsider, I'm an insider because I feel so connected to these women, even though the time of the class doesn't work for me. I can listen to the lesson classes every day. On Sunday, Maureen has church, and Todd is actually there monthly. And like, if you've gotten a lot from today, these are my people. These people are here to serve and to help. And I just feel like, in deep, deep, deep gratitude for all of you. And of course, my colleague Celina, who is just a rock star and just a joy and a pleasure to work with every day. So
Yeah.
shout out for you, Maureen.
Well, shout out to the branches, but shout out to the roots because you guys hold, you give us something to teach, and your ability to keep it published, and Speakeasy tithes to Foundation for Inner Peace because we wouldn't be here without you. So there's this beautiful synergy. We are able to do what we do because of what you do, and that's not ever lost on me. And I think it's really important to, to support where you're spiritually fed. And so as long as you're around, we'll be around continuing the conversation. And yeah, Megan Lassman, fantastic teacher. And we have some really great teachers there. And we don't just help people find A Course in Miracles, but we teach teachers. We teach to teachers so that they can teach and give them a place to teach. And when I see a great teacher, I support them, and Todd Fink is one of them, and he does the sermon once a week at Speakeasy, and every time I'm fed by it. So it is this beautiful organization where you can take a class and teach a class, and where we all sit knee to knee and heart to heart. And again, would not be able to do that if I didn't have the content. The content is A Course in Miracles, and your relationship with Celina and with Tam and with everybody at the foundation. It's no small thing, man. It's 50 years that you've been doing this, and it's no small thing. And I just want to celebrate you because we were once drunks and now look what we're doing. And serious miracles are happening.
Serious miracles. Thank you so much, Maureen. And just so you all know, I said almost said Todd, Jack has been pasting information about from your bios in the chat, and also the spiritual community is also listed there. So anyone feeling called to it, look in this chat in the notes for the foundation webinar. Okay. Well, unless somebody else has something to say, I have something I feel moved to do before we say goodbye today. Just wanted to see if there's any last words. No?
Well, I certainly wanted to echo what the others shared and say how grateful I am to be in the company and energy of my fellow panelists and teachers, and those volunteering to make this possible and all of the community joining us. It's very uplifting and healing and nurturing. And this, spiritual speakeasy community that I commune with once a month has been fantastic. It's been wonderful, and it is the reason why I could be here today and continue to make new connections on this journey towards spirituality and fellowship. There were several times in the chat that people were, if I could just say real quickly, asking about something called IFS and A Course in Miracles and AA, which is internal family system. So yes, it would be complementary to know, as Megan and others pointed out, the deep-seated sense of unworthiness. Usually it's tied to such a tender moment, like Maureen was saying, which I was talking with somebody the other day who said, when she was 11, she wasn't listening to her dad, and her dad made her go to bed at 1 p.m. Everybody else in the family and friends were playing. And ever since then, she thought, I'm not worthy of fun. I'm not worthy of happiness, and forgot that it came from that day, which was just a normal reaction of a child to think, well, if I have to go to bed at 1 and everyone else gets to play, I must not be good enough. So yes, when we deconstruct the unworthiness, we may find that it's such a tender lesson or shift in the perception that made us see, the snake in the rope. And I think that can facilitate grace. But you'll find this in a lot of other conditions that are related to addiction, like personality disorders. And borderline personality disorder, one of the most common, it's usually preceded by a significant loss or abandonment. So in a routine separation of partner going to work or taking a weekend trip with their friends, the person who's struggling with this perceives it, projects onto it as an abandonment, which then triggers cravings and trying to fill that void. So yes, when you bring in some of these other therapies, it can be, it can assist the process of deconstructing where the internalized belief came from. But then just to continue the spiritual inquiry, who am I? And what is ultimately true? Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, that was excellent. Anything else? Laura, anything you want to say?
Go, girl.
Okay. The time is almost coming to a close here. And I know in my intro, I mentioned that Course in Miracles doesn't mention addiction. But we have talked fully about this topic in the last hour and a half. But the Course, as I also said, mentions, as we know, the whole thing is about addressing and pointing to the separation in our mind. It does use the words enslavement quite a bit. It uses the notions of dependency. So we're always pointed there. So we open our meetings often in prayer, and then sometimes when we close our events and meetings, we take a minute to be quiet and meditate and have a reading. So I'm going to just say a little something from the Course here, and I'm going to just give us all about a minute to 2 minutes, and then I'll close us out officially. All right? Okay, here we go. So this is actually from chapter 11, God or the Ego. And it's in the section, The Problem and the Answer. Just part of it. Little child of God, you do not understand your Father. You believe in a world that takes because you believe that you can get by the taking. And by that perception, you have lost sight of the real world. You are afraid of the world as you see it. But the real world is still yours for the asking. Do not deny it to yourself, for it can only free you. Nothing of God will enslave his Son, whom he created free, and whose freedom is protected by his being. Blessed are you who are willing to ask the truth of God without fear, for only thus can you learn that his answers are released from fear. Beautiful child of God, you are asking only for what I promised you. Do you believe I would deceive you? The kingdom of heaven is within you. Believe that the truth is in me, for I know that it is in you. God's sons have nothing they do not share. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was perfect.
Thank you, Celina.
Okay. So,
Thank
everybody,
you.
absolutely thank you. Thank you all for being here. As we bring our discussion to a close today, we want to extend our deep gratitude to all our participants, our guests here, our audience, and our entire webinar support team. So before we say goodbye, we have a couple of important announcements to share and just to remind you to stay connected with the Foundation for Inner Peace. And we invite you to explore. We have digital resources, upcoming web events, ACIM teachings. We'll share all these helpful links in the chat. So I'll have Jack put something there. As far as supporting the foundation, Courses in Miracles have been made freely available for decades, thanks to the generosity of our community. So if you feel inspired to support our work, we deeply appreciate any donations that allow us to continue sharing this path of love and forgiveness. So thank you so much. With love and gratitude, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to having you again soon. Bye-bye.